President.
Senator from Alaska.
Mr. President, request that proceedings under the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Mr. President, I've come to the floor to speak in support of the Postal Service Reform Act, which is now pending before the Senate. So the mission of the U.S. Postal Service since the Continental Congress appointed Benjamin Franklin as our nation's first Postmaster General in 1775 has been to, quote, bind the nation together. So it sounds kind of like a pretty quaint, outdated idea, but it's actually serious, it's actually statutory. 39 U.S.C. tasks the Postal Service with binding our nation together by delivering all of our mail to every American promptly, reliably, and efficiently, no matter where we live. The Postal Service Reform Act will improve the agency's ability to meet that requirement, including in large, geographically remote places like Alaska, where it certainly has a significant impact on our lives. We count on the Postal Service to deliver not only the letters and the magazines and the bills, but also necessities of life, food, medicine, business inventory, spare parts. Just about anything you could possibly think of for daily life comes to us in Alaska through the mail service. The Postal Service is unique in its universal service obligation, and the fact that it delivers both mail and packages to Americans in every community, whether you live in Key West, Florida, or Utqiagvik, Alaska. No other federal agency or commercial enterprise does this. But it's becoming more and more difficult for the Postal Service to accomplish the swift completion of their appointed rounds, as we recall. And believe me, I certainly hear about the Postal Service's decreasing ability to provide its services promptly, reliably, and efficiently. I hear from it as soon as I get off the airplane, when I get back home. I hear from individuals all over the state telling me the concerns that they have about mail that is late or perhaps not delivered at all. Our phone rings in our offices around the state because a small post office has been closed for a period of days because the postmaster has left. There's no replacement available. I hear about the long lines to pick up mail, the long lines to just even buy a stamp in some of our smaller communities that get inundated by tourists in the summer. So we hear the strains on our Postal Service. Despite postal workers' dedication, the fact of the matter is the agency is in trouble and it needs the reforms that are contained in the bill that's pending before us. While many Americans believe the Postal Service is supported by the American taxpayer, that's not the case. Congress only reimburses it for mailing audiobooks to the blind and ballots to overseas voters. That's it. The Postal Service has to meet its payroll and fund retiree health benefits, maintain its facilities, equipment, and vehicles, deliver the mail to its destination on time with its own revenue from the sale of postage. But their financial instability is making those responsibilities harder and harder to fulfill. So, we're debating this legislation on the floor today to give the Postal Service the tools that it needs to be successful and fulfill its essential mission and to hold the USPS accountable for improved performance, because we all want to see that. So this legislation that we will hopefully vote on later today, not without controversy. Reform legislation is never without controversy, but that's why I appreciate the opportunity to outline what I think are some of the positive provisions. Importantly, the bill increases the Postal Service's accountability for on-time delivery and requires greater transparency in achieving the goal. The bill requires that mail delivery not only be prompt and economical, but also consistent and reliable and provided in a manner that increases operational efficiency. It requires the USPS to develop a new searchable public performance dashboard that's updated weekly, so both Congress and the public can keep a close eye on whether or not they're living up to our expectations. It also requires new regular reporting to the Postal Regulatory Commission, the PRC, and to Congress on a variety of indicators, including the impacts of price changes and information about reliability, efficiency, and cost effectiveness, postal workforce recruitment and retention, and how investments in equipment and infrastructure are impacting service. In addition, the PRC and the Postal Service's Inspector General must identify why there are inefficiencies in the collection, sorting, transportation, and delivery of large envelopes, newsletters, and magazines. These findings will be reported to Congress and the Postmaster General. USPS would then have 6 months to put in place PRC-approved changes that will fix whatever faults may have been found. The bill will also do what many of us have advocated for, which is reform the cost of health care for USPS employees and their retirees. So it provides needed stabilization for the USPS health benefit system and hopefully will relieve the pressure on their budget and supporting sustainable benefits for employees and retirees. This is a key provision. The bill also codifies an appropriations rider that has long required the USPS to integrate the delivery of letters and packages for 6-day delivery and includes a fair compromise on the attribution of costs for processing and delivering packages. One of the I guess, top complaints that I hear from Alaskans is that the cost of shipping via commercial package services is oftentimes more than the price of the item itself. Integrated delivery of mail and packages saves the U.S. Postal Service money by allowing it to be more efficient. And while UPS and FedEx charge most Alaskans extra for delivering their packages, these companies then drop their packages off in Anchorage as that hub and let the Postal Service take care of what we call last mile delivery. Well, in Alaska, that often means the last several hundred miles. Now, some are concerned that USPS subsidizes the cost of packages with revenue derived from delivering letters. But in fact, the law that we passed in 2006, the Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act, forbids the Postal Service from cross-subsidizing revenue to make sure that it's competing fairly with commercial package carriers. Current law also requires that package delivery covers all of its attributable costs. And while the Postal Reform Commission, or the Postal Regulatory Commission, and the federal courts have examined and upheld the cost attribution methodology, the Postal Service Reform Act requires yet another look, which I think is probably a fair compromise. Importantly, for Alaskans and for me, this legislation will not result in cost increases for essential bypass mail program. It is what it says it is. It's essential. It is a program that allows rural Alaskans who live in communities that are not connected by road, which about 80% of our communities are in that situation, but allows them to receive pallets of food, whatever necessary mailable matter that come from stores in Anchorage or Fairbanks, without millions of individual boxes of goods going through postal facilities. And that benefits the consumer, and it saves the Postal Service tens of millions of dollars a year in operating costs and untold millions in facility costs. While the Postal Service Reform Act directs the PRC to engage in another review of attributable costs, I've been assured by both sides of the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee, by the PRC, and by the Postal Service that this provision will not impact bypass mail, and I certainly intend to hold them to their word. Another concern that I want to address is over this bill allowing USPS to partner with state, local, and tribal governments to provide non-postal services. Now, I understand where this comes from, but this legislation specifically requires that any non-postal services must cover their own costs without any degradation to regular postal services. So, in my view, if the U.S. Postal Service can help deliver additional services to the American public under these two caveats, then they should be allowed to do so. So, Madam President, H.R. 3076 is a big step forward in helping the Postal Service achieve financial stability. It will enable the agency to continue to bind the nation together with efficient and cost-effective universal service and allow postal employees to achieve the swift completion of their appointed rounds. It's supported by a wide array of businesses, both large and small, all who rely on our postal service. It's supported by postal employees, by retired federal employees and the Postal Service itself. It has received overwhelming bipartisan support in the House of Representatives. I certainly hope that it will draw the same here in the Senate. And I want to commend the chairman of the Committee on Homeland Security and Government Services, as well as Ranking Member Portman, for the good work that they have done in bringing this bill to us today. Now, Madam President, while I am still here on the floor, I want to take just a moment and acknowledge that today, March 8th, marks International Women's Day. This is a day for us to recognize the achievements and the contributions that women are making in communities across the globe. And as an Alaskan, I'm going to start local first because I've got so many phenomenal women in my state who are doing incredible things, and I'm exceptionally proud of them. I was home over the weekend. We were celebrating the start of the 50th running of the Iditarod race. This is an extraordinary feat of just strength and grit and determination and resilience. There were 49 mushers that left Willow on Sunday. 17 of those mushers who will make the trek to Nome are women, 17 women. So we've got a very strong field. But running a race like this, where it is the musher and your team of dogs going through the wilderness of Alaska. We've got deep snow throughout. The moose are not in a very cooperative mood right now. There's dangers along the trail, and who knows what the conditions are going to be like a week from now. And so it takes an extraordinary individual, and to know the strength of women as they have taken on the Iditarod. When award-winning or world-renowned winner Susan Butcher first won that race. She won the race 4 times, but when she ran it about 3 decades ago, there was a popular bumper sticker that was going around the state at the time. It was Alaska, where men are men and women win the Iditarod. We were pretty proud of Susan Butcher. We're hoping that our women do well and all of our mushers do well. But like these female mushers who are racing, women leaders are virtually in every field, from healthcare to resource development to fishing to our universities, everything in between. And many of us are very proud to know that they've become somewhat household names, some of them. This year, we were able to celebrate Emma Broyles, a young woman from Anchorage, 20 years old. She became the first Alaskan and the first Korean American to ever be crowned Miss America in the 100-year history of that event. So we're very proud of her, was able to celebrate with her this weekend at the Iditarod itself. Another young woman that we have celebrated this past year is Lydia Jacoby. Lydia is from Seward, Alaska, and at 17, she competed in her first Olympics. She brought home the gold medal for this country, winning the 100-meter breaststroke race. So we were all eyes on Lydia, so proud of her. And there's so many who deserve our thanks and our gratitude. I always like to give a shout out to an exceptional leader in our state who has provided critical leadership and guidance throughout the pandemic, Dr. Ann Zink. It's so important to know that it's not necessarily finishing at the end of a race or a crown or a medal. It is just the endurance that goes with the day-to-day completion of your work. I was on the floor just last month to recognize the work of Native civil rights advocate Elizabeth Peratrovich, who pushed the territory of Alaska, our legislature at the time, to pass the first Anti-Discrimination Act in the nation. We did this in 1945. We're so proud of how she, as a Native woman leader, made our state and our nation a more inclusive and more representative democracy. So today, on International Women's Day, it gives us an opportunity to recognize the impressive feats that women have taken on and have accomplished. It's a day to thank women for their daily contributions. Again, both big, where they win the awards and they make the headlines, but also for those day-to-day contributions that they make to raising healthy, strong children, to being the fabric in the family, to be that contributor in the workplace. But this isn't a day that we just look back and recognize those who have made great accomplishments. It's also a day that we look ahead at the work that we have to do to continue to advance equality and justice for all women. So just down the hallway from here in the rotunda is the portrait monument. And we all see it, we walk by it, maybe we just don't even notice it anymore, but take a look at it next time. We know the pioneering women who are represented on it: Lucretia Mott, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and Susan B. Anthony. But we need to look at it more carefully. We need to remember there's a fourth bust that Adelaide Johnson did not sculpt, and the base of the monument is also unfinished. And it's a reflection of the unfinished struggle for women's rights and equality. So for all the progress that we've made, and we know it has been considerable, Madam President, as you're sitting in that chair and this woman from Alaska is addressing you, we've made great progress, but the struggle is unfinished. The data documents the gaps in gender equality in our country, and too many women feel it firsthand in their daily lives. So on International Women's Day, I also want to remind the Senate of a couple important ways that we can help further women's rights, and I'm pleased that my colleague, Senator Cardin, is on the floor at this moment because we've been working together. We've been working together to try to finish off, to do this unfinished business when it comes to ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, to ensure women's equality is expressly recognized in our Constitution. 3/4 of the states have now ratified that amendment. Alaska did it back in 1972, Virginia most recently in 2020. I'm hopeful that its time has come. And to help facilitate that, Senator Cardin and I have introduced a resolution to remove the arbitrary ratification deadline from the ERA so that it can finally take effect. I think the Senate needs to take this resolution up and pass it like the House of Representatives did last year. Another step, a critical step that we must take now, is the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act to help ensure that there is a path to justice for survivors of interpersonal violence. I was very proud to introduce the new VAWA bill with Senator Durbin, Senator Ernst, and Senator Feinstein last month. I'm pleased, so pleased, that we have 22 total co-sponsors, 11 from each party. Our bipartisan bill modernizes the nearly 3 decades-old Violence Against Women Act, and it reauthorizes important programs that provide services to survivors. It directs resources to prevent further violence and hold perpetrators accountable for their actions, and it takes needed and important steps to address domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking. I mentioned dating violence. We have a provision that I had included that we have named after an Alaskan victim of dating violence, and that is Brianna Moore. We focused on improving access to medical forensics for victims of violence, including through training for medical professionals that will allow them to provide evidence-based and trauma-informed care. We have a strong tribal title in this VAWA bill. It builds on VAWA 2013 by closing the gaps in the law to protect Native people. The tribal title also includes an Alaska pilot program, which provides a targeted solution to help empower tribes in a way that recognizes the unique and complex jurisdictional landscape that we have in my state. It's a recognition that tribes are valuable partners. They're critical partners that can play a larger role in providing public safety while reducing the burden on my state. As I have said many times before, there should be nothing partisan about keeping people safe from violence. And our VAWA reauthorization is the result of many years of hard work and negotiation by advocates and stakeholders alike. I hope that we can consider this and pass this very, very soon. I recognize the great work of Senator Ernst on our side and Senator Durbin and Senator Feinstein on the other side of the aisle. It has been an effort that is timely, is needed, and is necessary. So, Madam President, I'm happy to be able to recognize for just a few moments on this International Women's Day as we celebrate the many, many incredible women in our lives and in our countries. We also recognize that our work for true equality remains unfinished, but we've got some good paths forward if we can just try. And with that, Madam President, I yield the floor.